Mate, we just had our first guest on the podcast and fuck me, that was awesome. We had Steve Togganzini, or Togga, as he prefers to go by, from the Togganzinis, a wedding photographer, filmmaker based up in Byron Bay. He just jumped on the podcast, our first guest, and we just had minds blown.
Mate, it was great. We talk about outsourcing all your wedding stuff. We talk about advice that he wished he knew when he first started. Talk about his podcast a heap. What else?
How having a podcast has affected like his business in a good way. How treating your wedding business as a business, not a high-paying hobby.
Oh, and we spoke about how to do better styled shoots and more like campaigns for stuff instead.
Yeah, we were unsure or a little bit nervous about like getting a guest on, especially like there being two of us and then one guest. So like going back and forth, make sure we didn't cut each other off and all those bits and pieces. But mate, that was so good. Like he's so knowledgeable for someone that's been doing it for so long and like being able to stay relevant for so long. And I mentioned that he's 11 years older than me. He's probably very similar. I think we're similar in age, you and I.
1 year apart.
1 year apart. But how he is still learning, how he's still developing, how he's still expanding and doing all these things. And it kind of broke the limit for me personally in thinking like what the shelf life of a wedding vendor is. Like I always thought like once you get to like early 30s that people don't give a shit about you anymore and you're too old to go and do people's weddings. And he's just taken the opposite way and he's just absolutely dominating.
Yeah. No, it's really, really cool. And I honestly learnt heaps from it. So I hope everyone else learns a lot from it as well.
Oh, yeah. I think this would be one that you go back and listen to more than once. I think there's so many different takeaways from it and it could be a little bit overwhelming. Like I know we jumped through so many topics, but we also delve deep into some of those topics too. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, cool. Let it rip. Let's do it. People are scared that they're going to offend someone.
Told you, timeless is the photo. Editorial is the style. Timeless is not a the aisle is not a racetrack. Like, don't run down it. This goes for you and your bridesmaids.
Starting the podcast is actually like a little bit of a therapy session because you just get to, I don't know, you get a little bit comfortable halfway through chatting and then you just start just unloading and trauma dumping the whole time. You're like, what am I doing?
It is good though, for sure.
It's gross. Well, the intro and the banter has kicked off really well, so I've already hit record. So we can just hash it out, and then when we feel like it's natural, we'll bring it in. So that's how we sort of run the show. Would you prefer Steve or Togga? What do you prefer to go by?
Do Togga. Like Togga? I prefer Togga. Steve was like when I was like I've been Togga since I was about 10, like with friends and stuff like that. And then I started weddings when I was like 23, and I was like, no one's gonna hire a 23-year-old Togga. So I'm like, yeah, my name's Steve, like wearing button-up shirts and stuff like that.
Piss off. I'm hiring the 23-year-old Togga. I want that guy at my wedding. What are you talking about?
So, now it's just like stuck. It's hard to like get out of that. Like now I'm, obviously 38 now, so very comfortable. But as far as like going away from like this professional mode, which I think I'm supposed to be in, it's like, so starting to come back over.
Because I was going last night when we were doing a little bit of research. I'm like, I know his name's not actually Togga, but I couldn't find it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure his name's Steve. And I'm like, going to your website. I'm like, it's like Togga everywhere. I'm like, these guys make it really hard for me to find his actual name. Like, what's he hiding?
Yeah. How did the nickname come about? Or how does Togga even happen?
Just Tognazzini. It's like, that's the surname.
Oh, yeah, that makes so much sense.
Like, Dad was Togga. He had 5 brothers. They were all Togga, and it was me since I was like playing footy when I was 9 or 10 years old.
It's crazy that
you're all in one room and someone's like, hey, Togga, and then there's like 10 heads that just turn around.
Everyone's got whiplash.
Yeah.
So Christmas, you just Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
You just plain old Steve.
Boring old Steve.
Nobody likes Steve.
Exactly.
I could just imagine at Christmas time, someone, when they get presents, would just want to mess with everyone, just write to Togga on every single Christmas present. And then
exactly.
Like,
good luck with that.
To Togga from KK.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We love that.
Well, how's the potty and everything going?
Yeah, not too bad actually. It's good for me personally. I like doing it with somebody else, especially when it's like recurring. I just find it's easier to build like chemistry. And Michael and I have noticed even the last couple of episodes that conversations have started to flow a lot easier. Personalities are starting to come out a little bit more because our backstories. We met at a wedding. Michael was a groomsman and I was the photographer. This was like 2 or 3 years ago. And then
we actually didn't even chat the whole time. No. I don't even think we made eye contact.
No, we did because I've got photos of you going.
That's right. We went through the photos the other day and every one of them I'm just like this.
You knew it was a match, you know?
Yeah, it's just been stupid.
But yeah, no, it's been really good. Really, really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I saw that you've been starting your podcast for a while and stuff like that. You always at a different venue, always with different background, different thing. Tell us a little bit like that about that stuff.
That was like, it kind of wasn't going to start that way. And I was like, cool, we'll just do a podcast from a studio, whatever. And then like kind of going down the rabbit hole and you're like, man, like we've got the setup. Why don't you just go and film, wherever? And so, yeah, like pretty much I'll record like 4 episodes at like every different venue essentially. Just because like obviously you boys will know like it takes for the setup there, it's probably like an hour and a half to set it all up.
Yeah.
So at least that way I can kind of get 4 guests on, have them on for about an hour or so, but just make it really worth going there and doing that.
Yeah.
But for me, like being able to meet all the people that like run the venues and stuff, like, as a photographer or a videographer, what's the chance of that ever happening?
Yeah.
Apart from a wedding, you're like, hey, and like you hope they love your photos and videos and everything like that. But that's kind of as close as you get to a conversation with the venue owner.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so how's that, do you reckon, helped in a way? Because like you said, it's basically just a massive like speed dating networking thing that you've got going on. And I couldn't imagine the things that it would do for not only you, but like your business and all the people there.
Yeah, definitely. It's like just rocking up to a wedding. And now like every wedding I go to, there'll be someone that I've had the podcast or, they've listened to the podcast and having actual like proper conversations.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like I've been doing this 13 years, the 12 years previous is like, hey, what's up? And that's kind of it. And, you're smashing dinner real quick and you're speaking for 10 minutes and it's all just like, superficial level.
Yeah.
But now actually being able to have like proper conversations with people.
Yeah, that's cool. Would you say that you're like now mates with like a lot more people in the industry as well, rather than just like acquaintances?
Definitely, 100%. But it's a hard one because like you don't want to be. There are obviously a lot of people that want to come on the show, and it's hard to kind of choose between, like, is this genuine? Like, is this a genuine, like they want to actually chat, or is this like an angle they want to come on the podcast?
True.
Like I'm a really personal, like nice person to everyone, and we'll try and help out absolutely everyone, no matter where they're at. Yeah. But then it's like I know other people are just trying to kind of angle to get in as well. And so it's just trying to kind of pick those and trying to pick the real conversations, I guess.
Yeah. How do you do it? Is if someone calls you Steve, you just know that's not the guy.
It's literally just if they're nice people. That's it. Yeah. Like seriously, like people come to me and like I'll have a chat to them and they chat to me for 15 minutes and they're nice. I'm like, oh, cool. Do you want to come on for a chat on the podcast? And that's kind of it. It's not really any more angle apart from that, really.
So the podcast has been 12 months? Is that because you said you've been doing it for 13, so it's the last 12 months?
Yeah, it started, kind of filmed our first ones. I think it was, December, what year are we in now? 2023.
Yeah.
And then like launched the first episodes in January 24. So I think we just released episode 59, which is crazy. It's gone so quick.
That is wild.
Yeah.
That's been so quick. And what was like the catalyst to, I'm going to start a podcast?
Man, I don't know. I just like my wife has one that does really well. And so watching Kashia, she's been doing hers for maybe 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm. What's that called?
The Road to Wisdom podcast. So it's all like kind of natural parenting. A lot of people kind of tune in. But yeah, especially like living in Byron, there's so many people around here that tune into it as well. But just like the people that she gets to speak to are, they're writing books over in the States and all these people you never had access to. And all of a sudden she's getting to chat to all these people. And I was like, look, I need to start a podcast like in the wedding field just to like same thing to be able to reach out to people and, getting to sit down with a venue for an hour and chat to a venue owner. That's so good for work and rapport and everything like that. It's it's been really good actually.
Yeah. Kind of just become the man, hey.
Have you found in the last 12 months since you've started the podcast that things have grown in like more ways than one?
Yeah, definitely. It's I'm putting a lot into everything, so it's really kind of hard to choose like, is this 100% just a podcast? Is this like, I'm advertising like crazy at the moment. I'm doing like a whole bunch of things to kind of elevate, but I know other people that are kind of advertising as much as what I am that aren't getting the work that I am. And they're definitely easily as good photographers, videographers. Their websites are beautiful and everything. So I think just having that like hour of footage every single week is helping, so much as well. It's probably really kicked in, say the last 6 months. The first 6 months was probably just like, it just feels like you're working your ass off and kind of doing everything. And then it kind of just started to take off from there, I think.
Because your podcast is directed mainly towards vendors, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the whole idea was to do it for brides and grooms because that's how we get vendors onto the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's still at the moment like a 50-50 split. This year, especially the first quarter, like I'm doing a lot of PR stuff to try and build it up within the brides and grooms space as well. I'll be like on a bunch of different podcasts, going to different expos and everything, and just kind of really promoting the podcast to brides and grooms. Because ideally, like I want to have people on. I want to have vendors on and they can talk and have an hour of a chat, but then they book weddings because of that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's pretty hard these days to kind of chuck your $2,000 at a magazine or something like that and kind of see your payoff.
Yeah.
Whereas like if people come on the potty and they can talk for an hour and people can actually see them, they're a muso or whatever. If I was choosing between 3 or 4 and I could watch someone talk for about an hour, chances are I'm going to choose them.
Yeah.
Do you think
it's just like, sorry, Riley?
Oh no, you're right. This is going to be the hardest part, navigating 3 people in two months. I was just going to say, do you think that maybe not necessarily now, but in the coming years that podcasts will become a better form of marketing for vendors as opposed to the old adage of like blog posts and magazines and all those sorts of things?
Definitely, like without a doubt. And that's why I'm doing it. It's already, speaking to some really big venue owners that own like really good venues, and they almost see more value in it than what I do. I think without a doubt, like podcasts, especially video, I think maybe audio podcasts are done. I think if you're not doing video, it's a bit irrelevant at the moment. But yeah, I think as far as marketing goes, like same thing, like if we're getting say 10,000 downloads per month and 5,000 of those are couples, that's a lot of couples, like, and if you're coming on to speak on a podcast and one couple from that 5,000 books you, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's a lot more than just going to a magazine and flicking through pretty photos. The chances of them actually like, clicking onto your website after that are a lot slimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's the way forward for sure.
And it's really nice to have those touch points as well. Like a bride and groom come onto your page. They don't just see photos now. They've seen like you talking on your page. Now they've seen another touch point. Oh, you're on a podcast. I go onto your website. You got all these different avenues and all these touch points that make you kind of feel like you know them a little bit more, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And then like I'm still offering, if someone comes on the podcast, I'm like, hey, here's a full episode. Use that on your About Me page. Use that on your stories. Do whatever you want to do with that. And then I don't know if you guys use, like I use Opus Clip is like an AI kind of reel generator. And so same thing, like I'll upload the full podcast to that and it'll kind of create 40 different reels from the whole episode.
Oh,
and same thing. Hey.
Whoa, what is this?
It's really good.
I'm not doing it myself anymore.
You just got magic.
It's really good. Like it's 20 something bucks a month. And so it's like after this, you can upload this full episode to it and it'll even cut between the cameras for you and everything like that.
Whoa.
Yeah. So then like I'll just send like, hey, here's 40 AI generated reels. They're not perfect, like 100% they're not. There's some that you're like, oh, that sucks.
Crap.
But still there might be 5 usable reels that they can go and use. And essentially, they've come and they've spent 2 hours of their time or something like that. It's a lot of collateral and a lot of marketing they can use for like 2 hours of their time.
That's great. Riley's out of a job.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what? I'm more than happy to be out of it because there's so many other things. Like this is what like a little bit of back and forth that I've been going with Michael about is I have a very addictive personality. So when we started this, it started as a bit of fun. Like I remember I was driving to like fucking footy training or something and I was like, I've really wanted to message Michael for like the last 3 weeks because I want to do a podcast. The Wed Talk one was
Just thinking
cool,
about
but
me.
I was like,
Late
look
at
how
night.
good this guy's work is. I want to be like him. And I was like, I want to start a podcast with somebody else. And I feel as though that we might have, from the times that we had talked, because Michael came on the Wed Talk podcast, we had a really good chat. And we actually spoke off air for like 2 hours and it was really, really good. So I was like, oh, fuck, I'm just going to message this dude. Anyway, reached out to him and he's like, I've actually wanted to do a similar idea for a similar amount of time. So anyway, we linked up and now that we're both really enjoying it, I was like, how can we make this more than just us talking to people, but how can we make this like beneficial for others? I think we've sort of like decided that vendors are our target audience.
Yeah, awesome.
And then from there, it's like, okay, how can we make this worthwhile for them? But then how do we also make this worthwhile for us as well? You know, the old adage that with the wedding industry, it's like, I need more bookings to make money. But it's like there's so many other ways that you can do it. And then hopefully one day this becomes some sort of like extra thing that's added to our bow that we can go and shoot for couples and we have that side of it, the creativity side. And then there can be like this side that really helps other vendors and people in our spot because we're in both very similar spots at the moment.
Yeah. You might be asking, like, where do you see the podcast going? Like, what's the plan for you guys?
Maybe I have an idea. Maybe you go first, Michael, because I don't think that we've even asked each other
go first.
This question.
I would like it to, well, we have two sides of it. We have like a main episode that we do. And that's where we just ramble, just talk, whatever we just did that week. And then we had this kind of education kind of side to it where we want to kind of help vendors who are just starting in the wedding industry, like with talking to people like yourself or just giving advice that we can give to things that we wish that we knew, like when we first started. Just because there's not really that free resource for people just starting in this industry. It's quite closed off a little bit. Yeah. So we just wanted to kind of lean down that path and really push that forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very similar. Like I feel as though the education space with weddings and most other like kind of creatives is it's all roadmaps and cohorts and like all those sorts of bits and pieces. And the good ones, the ones that do it well, there is that personability side that they have in their content. But if the education path is the route we go down, I'd love it to be in a way where it's like just Michael and I sharing the experiences that we've had to others.
We don't know anything. We know fuck. We know fuck all. Honestly, we just know jack shit. So we'll teach you what we know, but we don't know anything.
Yeah, so just like teaching people along the way, and then you know everything that we say is like not something that is to be taken for gospel.
Yeah,
but it's like take what you think might work for you and just implement that and try and take it a little bit different because there's a lot of people going into the education space.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I know enough to be like, this is a set structure for like how you can go from 0 to 100K and all those kind of things.
Yeah,
but just being like, this is what we've done. Like, this is how much work we've done. This is the weddings we've done and where we've done them and how we go about like operating our business. And if you reckon that's cool, here's some of the tools that we've done to do that. But if you want to go somewhere else, by all means, go somewhere else.
Yeah. I think you'd be surprised though. Like you think you know jack shit, but realistically, like if you sat down and like either say you hired a staff member and you needed to write down everything for them to do exactly what you do, or if you sat down and like wrote out a course of like everything you do within your business, there'd be a ton of stuff in there.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like
it's like that imposter syndrome where you're like, I know nothing. And then someone comes to you and you're like, oh, how do I do this? And you're like, do this, 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 and this.
Exactly.
And it's basic knowledge to us, but it's gold to somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know, it's strange as well. When I was talking to my partner about this, when we were first starting, because we're talking about today and some of the things that I wanted to chat about. And she's like, oh, well, like, what advice would you give and stuff? And then I gave some advice to her and she's just like, we got given that advice when we first started, but we just didn't take it. And I think it was just because it was given at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So it's so strange that like there's all this advice getting thrown around like, oh, go do this, go do that, go do that. And unless someone's like at that point in their career, they'll just be like, I'm not doing that. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. So like what we like you said, like what we are giving advice about, a lot of people probably would say, oh, don't need to know that. But a lot of people probably would say, no, I do need to know that. It's hit me at the perfect time, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were talking before about, everyone's like thinks they need more leads and more work and everything like that. Is there anything in particular you guys are doing within the wedding space for yourself, like at the moment, to bring in more leads or like bring in more money per job?
Yeah. So it's actually crazy. I've from like November to current day, my business has gone from like just straight up through the roof. It was actually really overwhelming and really wild. But it was a combination of I started a marketing agency. I think you might be with the same people.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome.
Incredible. Great stuff. Completely blew all expectations out of the water.
How did you feel spending that money at the start? Like committing to like, oh, this is what it's going to cost me?
Make or break.
Yeah, 100%.
It was like make or break. This has got to work. I will make this work. So really scary going into the marketing first.
Yeah.
But after, I think we made it back in the first like 2 days.
Yeah,
it was crazy. Sure. And then our Instagram, we just kind of hit a little sweet spot in our reels and stuff, and that's kind of launched as well. So yeah, just been hitting reels and marketing has been phenomenal. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's similar. Like, but even going into mindset, like you think about November where it's like kind of this scarcity mindset to now where you're like, oh, we're good. How much like everything shifts in that time.
Oh yeah.
It's
crazy. And I was talking to Riley about this actually because he's actually going through a rebranding type of thing, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. But he's like, oh, I need to do this, need to do that, need to do this. Like, no, mate, don't worry, it will come. Just like you've got the roadmap. It's all gonna happen. Don't you worry. Like, just stick to the plan, because you're right, it can just change in like literally 2 days.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, my piece of advice to people would be that when that opportunity arises to take that marketing thing, fucking take it, because I inquired. I was scared that I didn't have the money at the time to make it work. Yep. And now I'm in like sink or swim mode, and Michael's in playing golf and drinking beers at the pub.
He's buying new clubs.
And just walking around. So
that's funny as.
Well, it's not, but
it's not funny at all. It's funny for me, not for him.
But it's like, this is why I think that the dynamic in that works as well, is because it works so well, is when Michael in that November period was in a very similar spot to where I am now. And he was asking me like, do I offer 50% off all my stuff? And I just need any booking is some booking. Whereas now he took that leap. He outsourced something, which I think is huge.
Yep.
And it's now paying dividends. Whereas me in the other hand, because of some stuff that happened earlier in the year, I was really cautious about diving into something like this again.
Yep.
Not like that I'd done marketing before, but being tied into long periods of whether it's like coaching or something like that, where you're paying out a lot of money and you're hoping that there's something that comes back for you.
Yeah.
I feel as though the good thing about that with marketing is there's someone out there actively trying to bring you work. So it's a little bit different to like coaching, where someone's trying to teach you a bunch of bits and pieces, and then it's all down to you to implement the work to see the results.
For sure.
But yeah, it's just, if something like that pops up and you're not 100% sure, it's like, it's damned if you do, damned if you know. Risk versus reward. I didn't want to take the risk because like slightly different situation maybe to Michael, like having a mortgage and a couple of other different things. And I was like, I just can't, if it doesn't work, like I'll be homeless.
Yeah.
And then, but I don't know all the ins and outs of Michael's personal life, but he took the risk and it's worked. So,
oh mate, if it didn't work, it's not good.
He was moving in with you, Riley.
So yeah, I think it's just taking calculated risks. That's the main thing. And now, like, I'm lucky enough to have Michael as like a close mate now, and he's been really helpful, sort of drip feeding me bits and pieces and being the support that I guess I was to him back then.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I'm just like, nah, fuck it. Like I don't try to look, I've taken a different approach where like not everything is about money.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason I'm putting it that way is because if I was, all my decisions day to day were governed by like, I need to make like $5,000 today, that you're going to make irrational, probably stupid decisions.
Yep.
And you'll half-ass things and you won't go into it because you're just trying to find like the next cash grab to make you some money.
Yep.
So I know that, I know the bottom line. Like I know that I still have to pay for my mortgage and my car and fuel and bills and whatnot. But I'm like, well, if I can, in the shitstorm that I'm in, if I can figure out a way to make the work that I have to do not a problem and be like, okay, I'll just do this, 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 and this. And if I'm doing that whilst the money isn't great, then I'm hoping that when the money comes back, it's, I'm not like hating on my job and hating on my work. Like I'm happy with the problem that I have of delivering clients and learning marketing and making templates for Instagram or pricing guides or websites or whatever it is. That part doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
It's the money part. So that hopefully when the money comes, I just continue on with what I was doing and doesn't become like a labor of love where I'm like forcing myself to do all of these things, but the money's good. And then you just hate yourself.
I think like talking to all the people you're talking to as well, you do take, little bits and pieces on board from every single person you speak to. And then you kind of just like, oh, implement this little bit. Like even with, Zoom calls now, I've got like a 6 week out from their wedding, like a Zoom call that I do religiously with every couple. And that's probably only been the last 5 months. The 12 years before that, I've never done anything like that.
Yeah,
but
right.
Most of the times, like this week, I've just upgraded $2,000 off of 2 weddings. Like one that added 35 mil photos to their collection and another one who added like a ceremony and speeches. And like if I didn't have that call, I would never have added that. You know, and it's just I think even if you come back to like the marketing or advertising or whatever aspect, and it's like, cool, well, make or break, I need 3 months, I need $5,000 or something like that. Realistically, if you went through all your couples at the moment and you upsold them, $500 per each couple or $1,000 for a couple couples or something like that, you could easily come up with that $5,000.
Yeah,
put that into that, because that's even I think obviously education is going to be huge the next 10 years. Like obviously everyone is moving into that space and that's going to be like a massive cash, for people that are in the space. But then I think even like how we have like actually hiring an agency to do advertising. I've got like another one about to do like a full marketing like / Instagram campaign for me and hiring them for 2 months. But then like I'm transparent with them, like, yeah, but I've also got an employee who's going to take over this. So it's almost like getting them to build out what they think is the perfect thing and then teaching the employee, okay, this is how we're going to replicate this moving forward. I think that's almost better than trying to sit down with like how much education there is at the moment, trying to learn all the stuff. There's so many things to learn, and all you really want is kind of the end result. And I feel like a lot of the time the end result isn't that hard to replicate once you know what the end result is.
Yeah, definitely. If you could go back to like a little bit about you and your side of the business, was there like maybe a turning point for you in your business or was there like a turning point where it just shot up or was it more of like a slow burn where you gradually made more ground and more popular?
Yeah. Well, when I first started, it went quick. Like within the first 2 years, same thing. It was like kind of in the Hello Maze and all that kind of stuff. But I almost didn't know what I had at the time. Like I was booking, like Stones down the Yarra Valley. Like I was booking all these epic venues. And then I would take the clients off site to shoot in the fucking bush somewhere. And like just had like no clue like how many photographers would kill to have this on their portfolio.
Yeah.
And so like, I kind of got all these opportunities really early on. Like the Made with Love stuff, we did their first ever campaign shoot with like Carla and Joe. That would have been 12 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And like to now be able to jump on those brands is so much harder, obviously, to get back in there. But it kind of went up really quick and then it just plateaued for a long time, honestly.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we were both doing photo at the time. So we were both working kind of full time in the business. And then, even after having our first kid, Kashia was back shooting 3 weeks after we had our daughter. And it was just kind of plateaued for, honestly, it's like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. Just a little bit comfy and you're like this happy with this. Let's just keep cruising.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, I mean, we had 5 kids in 7 years. Like it was pretty, that was enough. It's like, we'll just like focus on family. Kashia, started her podcast up and wasn't kind of shooting anymore. And then I kind of tipped over, maybe photo and video, I reckon probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I think that was the biggest shift to like, oh, I can rock up for a day and earn, like at the time, $4,000 for photo, or we can pretty much double our revenue by adding, video onto that as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the first biggest shift. Like when we actually added on the video, was like, cool, it's probably like 150% what we were earning for weddings.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously comes the whole thing of like, oh, now I've got to edit videos, and
then
then
edit that. That's my life right now.
Different thing.
Yeah, and over that time, because like 6 years for like a plateau, was there stuff that you had to keep doing to stay relevant, to keep keep clients coming in, or was it just pretty natural of?
A lot of venues, like I used to shoot down the Yarra Valley a lot, and same thing. Like I had 5 or 6 venues down there, like Immerse, and they would send me 6 or 7 weddings every year, and it kind of just kept ticking over. I think at the time, it might have been even like still advertising mainly with Facebook, I think. But same thing, I was like $50 a week or something like that, and that would kind of just maybe it's an inquiry a week or something like that. But most of the time, it was coming from venues.
Yeah.
And I guess I was just doing a good enough job. I was kind of sending them, all the photos straight away. They were using it for their their marketing magazines and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people just saw that, came to my website, booked us, because if they were paying X amount of dollars for this venue, they could easily afford us as well.
Yeah.
So it definitely just got comfy, and again, didn't realize what we had at all.
Yeah.
It was just luck that we fell into that space, really.
Do you find that? Oh, sorry, Michael.
No, go. Let it rip.
As I say, did you find that treating your business more like a business has helped you to build? Like I know most photographers, like most wedding creatives, especially photo and video, that it's almost like a high-paying hobby is the way that it gets treated sometimes. Like we hate admin, we don't know marketing. Well, not all of us, but most of us when we started don't know marketing. And the reason you get into it is because you want to shoot. You want to go and take photos. You want to go and create films, and you want to do all those bits and pieces. But the one thing that I've noticed that once you start to treat it as a business as opposed to a hobby, and that was one of my main things this year, is to try and make that switch. Did you find that once you started outsourcing your marketing and all those other things, like is there anything else that you do outsource quickly?
Well, like all our editing as well. So like I've got video editors in the Philippines and like photo editors as well. Yeah. And then Hazel, she's in the Philippines. She does like all the social media and the marketing.
Yep.
The same thing. It isn't perfect right now, but at least it's consistent. And then that's where we're gonna hire this agency to kind of redo our full marketing plan, so she can kind of be across that more and kind of elevate that game again. But it's completely night or day treating it like a business versus just kind of, like you said, making it a hobby. And I think everyone feels like this massive like ego, like, oh, I do everything, and they try and sell that in all their packages. Like, I do all the editing, I do all this. And they're like, think this is like this amazing thing. And I think that's probably like the biggest disservice for a lot of, wedding creatives, is trying to do that and portray that as that's the best thing you could ever do.
Yeah. I wonder if couples really, I don't think the couples give a shit as much as we think they do when it comes to all those things. Like when I was with my last business partner in the company we outsourced like everything from the get-go. Like, because we had a real estate aspect to the business as well.
Yep.
Real estate photos outsourced, floor plans outsourced, videos outsourced, wedding photo editing outsourced, wedding video editing outsourced. We went to VAs at one point. That's another thing to outsource. And the way that it's just popped into my mind is like, if you're starting out, right, and the one thing you have no idea to do is say it's accounting. Everyone just goes and get an accountant. I don't want to deal with that. Get an accountant. I don't want to learn about it. I don't want to know about it. They do it. Look at them. It's the exact same when it comes to like other aspects of your business. Like if you don't know marketing and you can afford to go and hire a marketing agency, go and hire it. Like, I think people get in their own heads that if they're not doing it, everybody else is going to think that they're like cheating the system because they're not the people that are putting all that effort in.
Yep.
But essentially, they're just smarter than the rest of us, and they're brave enough to go and like outsource and take a step back. And I think to grow, you have to learn to let go.
Yeah.
And when you start out, like, you want to do it all. It's like your baby. But then it's probably like, I don't have kids, but you do. It's like as they get older, you let them go, you let them do their own thing, and things flourish from there. I think it's the same with business. Like, you have to outsource. You have to learn to let go of things and entrust in other people to do a good job for something that's going to then, come back and pay dividends for you at the end of the day.
Like when I speak to vendors and couples when I have that kind of sales call with them, I'm like, okay, so you're watching like a Hollywood film. Is it the dude filming it that's like editing it and doing the color and doing pre-production? Like that in the rest of the world apart from here, as if that would ever be expected of someone. And would you ever think that the person filming is going to be better than someone that sits at a desk and all they do is color? They're going to shit all over the person that does the filming. And so like once you actually break that down to couples, I think couples just want to know like, you're still the one filming and I'm still telling the editors, this is the story.
You're still in charge.
Yeah. This was the super like important parts. This is, grandma, grandpa, this moment happened. And so like on the way home from a wedding, I'm just on my phone doing voice memos like and running down the day. And even like then we do like a ceremony and speeches edit first and I can even run through it and just be like, okay, cool. From 6 minutes to 8 minutes, this is a really good part of the speeches. Like I want to include this part and build a story around this or this part of the vows or something. And I think like as long as you're still crafting that and making it personalized, you can almost put more effort into it. And it does definitely like it's elevated my film so much because there'd be so many times I'm doing a video edit and you kind of get to 75% and you're just like, I just want to get it done. And then you just like the last 25% is like whatever. And just like, I just need to get it out because I need to get to the next one.
Yeah.
Whereas like now you're taking over at 80% done and you can kind of add those final little touches and be like, guys, let's add some sound effects in here. Or let's, this, I don't know about this shot. Let's change this up. Whereas if you've done the rest of it, you're just like, it's fine. And keep moving on.
I love that. And let's talk about some juicy stuff here. Because a lot of people are probably wondering where you find in your outsourced like editors and all that stuff. Because I know when I first tried to look for them, it was hard to find.
Yep. So I go through WorkPod. So they've, it's through like mutual friends on the Gold Coast. And so he started up a company essentially in the Philippines. And so they own, I think it's like 3 or 4 actual like massive office spaces over there. And so they've probably got maybe 200, 300 people over there at the moment. And so I guess the process is scary because you essentially have to buy them a computer. And then, so you got to go but that's how I guess it's so cheap. Like you're pretty much like we're hiring people that have absolutely no experience and training them up from no experience to like the way we want them to work essentially. So like I'll buy them, the guys that are doing video editing, they've got these M3 iMacs that are sick. It's probably like $5,000 all up, including like headsets, camera, like all the kind of things, like hard drives, everything they're going to need. But then because they're like a super base level editor, we're paying them like 25,000 pesos, which is maybe like 175 a week. But then you're also paying like a desk fee to kind of house them in the offices over there as well. So you're probably looking at like $1,100, $1,200 a month. But then
how are you training these guys?
Well, that's a hard part is like you've got to go through and like I bought a bunch of courses of guys that I liked and then look through their courses and I'm like, cool, I like this. Wouldn't do it that way and just kind of work out what your onboarding system is. And then kind of replicated all the videos that I'd seen and then just made it like, Loom videos of everything. But essentially, like they'll start off as just doing ceremony and speeches edits. And so all I want you to do is multicams. That's it. And then I want you to do multicams and go through and choose the best parts of like those ceremony speeches and then kind of pass those on to the senior editors. And the senior editors are the ones that kind of do the actual creative. And then they do all the color and everything as well.
Wait, so you've got heaps of these guys?
No, there's only 3 in total.
Okay.
But that's kind of the system that I've worked and it's worked really well, like training each person up.
Okay.
Because then they do actually help each other out a fair bit, but they will never give each other criticism either. So like you always have to be the one giving because they just don't want to like step on anyone's toes.
Yeah. It's very much the nature of the people over there that they're like, I know with my ones, like they're always nice and they always call me sir and all this stuff. Don't fucking call me sir. I don't like it. But they're like their culture, they're very nice people. So you've got to be a little bit more direct. But they're like outsourcing like that it's phenomenal. So you're saying that if you had 1 film or 10 films in a month, that it's roughly $1,200 total, or does it?
Well, you're just paying them 40 for 40 hours a week, essentially.
So essentially, it's a VA.
Yeah, exactly.
A really good VA that's good at editing.
Especially like when you look at outsourcing in the States and all that kind of like web editor and stuff, you're probably Australian $1,000 a film or something like that. And so if you're 40 films, you're like $40,000. Well, that's 3 staff in the Philippines that I could hire. One of them's doing all the ceremony speeches and two are creative, like doing the editing, and they would smash out 40, they could probably they're doing maybe 3 a month comfortably.
Yeah.
So you're kind of doing like, say, 35 a year per editor. So yeah, it's good.
It's always just interesting to see that, because I outsource all my films as well.
Yep.
But I have a team of just 2 guys.
Awesome.
And they're based in Bali. And they're a little bit more expensive. They're like $675 per film.
Yep.
But with these guys, I can give them, they already had experience. So there wasn't any, I guess, training up from the start.
Awesome.
But they take the same approach where you can give them a style and then you give them a rundown, and then over time they'll tailor the way their editing style is to the way you want your films done.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's cool to see how somebody goes about doing the exact same thing but different approach.
Yeah. And yeah, you just need the time.
I was going to say, now that you've got like all these editors, sound like you've got a pretty cohesive team, just cranking it out. What are you doing now with all the time?
Dude, obviously you guys would know the podcast takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it's not just sitting down and filming. It's, looking for people, like who do you want to have on? It's trying to organize everyone else's schedule and get 4 people on at the same day. There's a fair bit in that. Yeah. At the moment, I've been editing the actual podcast episodes just because it's a little, especially like with the Roadcaster, having, everyone's audio tracks on different levels and just I'm just trying to get that all filmed properly so they can take over that.
Mm-hmm.
But currently I'm doing that. But also, like, I don't have a problem shooting 50 weddings a year if I'm not worried about like the backlog stuff.
Yeah.
I used to really get to like 30 weddings and just be like, I can't take another one because I can't do another film. Like I just can't edit another film.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like so exciting. Like we can just kind of take on more and more and it's not even an issue at all.
Yeah. I love that. And you're saying earlier, a little bit off the podcast, that you were kind of doing some campaigns and stuff along those lines. Are you able to talk a little bit about that?
Like I do a lot of fashion stuff, but that's so my wife's family actually own like a big fashion company. And so that's usually like 3 or 4 days every month that I go down to Melbourne and shoot that.
Yeah, okay.
But definitely moving into the wedding side, I think that's definitely like a good way to elevate your brand.
Yeah.
I had like Nathan Lappin on the podcast, but worked with him another time as well. And he does a lot of like campaign dresses and like books a lot of weddings because brides will see that dress and then they'll be like, well, who shot that photo? They get onto Nath and then he books because of that.
Yeah.
That's cool as.
It's really cool. And it's like just means like really good imagery.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely, it will be a big focus as far as like elevating branding this year. We'll be working more in that space, more so than doing styled shoots. It's hard to make them pay off, I think, in my opinion. Like it's cool, you get some beautiful shots of flowers and everything like that. But then like, I guess the biggest part is a networking factor with the vendors. You might book some weddings because of different vendors. Whereas I think taking that and just going to like, oh no, this is more a campaign shoot for the actual dresses is a kind of a whole different story.
Yeah, I love that. And
sorry.
I was going to say, and are you just reaching out to these like companies with their dresses and stuff, or is this through like previous relationships?
I think reaching out, if you're going to do it from not done it before, I'll definitely start up to small brands because there won't be any people approaching them as well. And kind of you need this proof of concept of like, this is stuff I've already shot. For me, it's a little bit easier. Like the stuff we do for fashion, they can cost, 30 to 40 grand a day for like the people, putting these shoots on. By the time you've got, models for $4,000, you got hair and makeup, you got stylists, you got location, like one of these days can easily cost 30 grand. And I think for the bigger bridal companies, that's something you have to remember is it's costing them so much money. They need to be guaranteed that they're going to get beautiful imagery that's going to sell their product.
Yeah.
And so they're not really going to take a risk on someone that isn't proven either.
Yeah. So for someone like starting out, you would just recommend like kind of bootstrap it, talk to a smaller company, grab their address, try to find a model or something like that, and just go do it all out on your dime to start with, just to get some stuff.
I would for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, models are the better models you can get, they're going to cost you for sure, but models are like kind of everything. There's no point getting a beautiful wedding dress and someone, even if they're beautiful, but they haven't modeled before, and you aren't experienced in that field, it's going to be really hard to get some nice shapes and make that dress look really nice as well. you get a lot of kind of just like looking to camera and like, okay, now we're going to walk, but it's not really like what that bridal company is looking for.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, and what would you recommend to someone to kind of upskill themselves in like posing and getting like shapes and like you were saying, like, and making models look really great in dresses, just because that is like I wouldn't have a clue about that side.
Yeah. I think honestly, if you can go into like, even like, I guess it's more kind of Facebook groups, like all the local ones, and be like, hey, I want to shoot a model. There's going to be like 10 girls that put their hands up. They don't have modeling experience, but they look good in a bikini.
Mm-hmm.
Take them out. They'll have no idea what they're doing, and neither will you. But if you take them out for an hour, and then you might get like 2 shots where you're like, that worked. I've got no idea why that worked, but that did.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like doing that, like you could do one of those every 2 weeks. And after like 6 months of continually doing that, it's the same as weddings. Like, like when you're doing photo for weddings, you know what works. Like, cool, guys, we're going to hold hands. We're going to walk over here. You're going to hold your bouquet this way. And you just know it works. And you will get to that point where you just work with models. And it's hard. Like, you rock up with a girl that has no experience and you don't. Fuck, it's awkward. And you're like, she's just like looking at you, like waiting for you to give her poses or direction. You're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
It's like when you go blank on a wedding day and you're like, oh, what do I do next? And they're looking at you and the cogs are like fucking spinning.
It's like that, but it's like that on speed. It's so hard. You don't have any props to work with or anything like that. So I think
just holding a light over like this. Mate, do something. I don't know.
So just trying to get getting super uncomfortable, but you'll get more and more comfortable with that. And then from there, like if you actually have a wedding dress, the dressmaker or the art director or something's going to be there, and they're going to have a bit of an idea of what they want as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you can kind of feed off each other and kind of build this story together. But at least that way you're going to kind of. And then I mean, obviously YouTube is massive as well. You can type in 20 fashion poses and watch 20 different YouTube videos of like how you'd pose a woman in a dress, and there's so many on YouTube.
Yeah. Absolutely love that. And I suppose just finding local people in your area is great as well. Like like you were saying, there's so many small just people trying to get a tiny break.
Yep.
And everyone would be super keen, like the smaller side, to just, use this dress, do this, and be stoked with anything you give them. And I'm sure if you did a good enough job, you could then send those out to publications as well. Yep. Like, have a look at this crazy shoot we did.
Yeah, exactly.
Just take it on film and they'll think it's amazing.
Exactly. Get some Super 8 of it, you're away.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so good.
Do you reckon there's any way that the idea like this can be incorporated into a styled shoot so that they become more beneficial? Because I feel as though, like, I know when you mentioned before that with styled shoots, like they're good, but you're not necessarily like something may not come from it.
Yeah.
Do you think something may not come from it from a photo video standpoint, because essentially all the content we're generating is mainly for others? Like it's for the venue and it's for the florist and it's for this, and where besides the venue, we're normally a vendor that gets picked first, so that you're not essentially getting referrals from those other vendors. This is just on, I don't actually have a point or a reason for this, but I'm just wondering, like, after mentioning all of that, do you reckon there's any way that for a photographer and a videographer that doing the styled shoots and taking an aspect from those like fashion campaigns could make them a lot more beneficial, instead of having to do a lot of them and then hoping that the venue uses those photos and then hoping that the venue recommends you?
Yep. I think like, say, pre-production and having like a little pitch deck of like, create a story for yourself. Because obviously everyone else there just wants pretty photos of their makeup, their flowers, whatever. Yeah. But if you can make a little 1 to 2 minute actual story that you can use, I think that's a venue's going to use that, rather than just like, here's a cutaway of flowers, whatever. Yeah. If you can actually like create a short story of what is this bride's day or what's happening here, and create that prior to the shoot, and you have everyone across this, like this, we're creating like a short story. We're doing like this 1.5 minute narrative, and cool. Okay. Frame, scene 1, the bride's driving in the car. It's going to be epic. We're going to get shots of the wheel and she's going to get out of the car. That's like shot 1. And then like actually creating a story. Mm-hmm. The chances of a venue and other publications using that rather than here's a pretty styled shoot, it's a completely different thing. And then you don't even need to have, you can like, then that way you can focus on the dress and the bride a lot more, but there might be like little cutaways of the flowers, but it's not has to be all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's good advice.
I did a styled shoot like late last year, and I didn't have. So I think it was kind of like last minute that I was thrown into it because they decided that they wanted a videographer.
Yeah.
And I got some clips and stuff from it, but it more felt like it was like, okay, we need to get this of the styling, and then we need to get that of the dress, and then we need to make sure we get that of the flowers. And it, for me, I reckon I made like 3 reels out of it, and I was like, there's really not much else here because, like you said, there was no story to it. It was just a whole bunch of collated footage. I was like, could I make a reel that looks cool for 10 seconds? Probably. But is that going to like draw someone to want to book me from that venue? Probably not. Is that going to give the florist? There's nothing that I can tie in the reason why like beautiful flowers would work well in this setting. Probably not. Like it just, that's a really good way of putting it. Actually go in there with a plan, not just like go there to capture a bunch of shit for everybody else.
Yeah. And there's people that do this for their jobs. Like you could go away and hire like a creative director from somewhere and be like, okay, cool. Here's $1,000. We need to create a story. It's got to involve a bride. It's got to include, like, you don't even need to tell the venue yet, but it's going to include this venue. We want to shoot there and get them to kind of create this whole vision for you. And then like, if you took that to the venue and like, hey guys, this is what I want to do at your venue. Your venue's stunning. I love shooting here. I want to create this short story, and have someone that's kind of, that's their sole job, is to create that story. And then taking that to them. The people that you have on board with that shoot are going to be so elevated rather than just like, hey, I want to do a styled shoot. All the people that you want to do the styled shoot with you are going to be like, nah, I've done styled shoots. They don't pay off for me. But if you're like there with a venue and they're like, this sounds like an awesome idea and we'd love to include this on our website, like on the landing page or something like that, then all of a sudden all the other people are going to kind of fall in place afterwards. And it's almost like the venue's going to do the pitching for you.
That's cool. I like that kind of outlook on it.
Yeah. And then like, as if a florist is going to say no, if like, an awesome venue come to them and like, hey, we've got this thing coming up. It sounds awesome. We'd love you to be involved. They're going to be like, yeah, cool. Like I'd love to, because they know they're going to get more work from the venue.
That's such great advice. I have been asking myself that question for so long now. I'm like, how the hell do I even do this and make it good? Just go to creative director and be like, here is some cash. Go make this insane and then give it back to us.
Like, I don't know if you look at like even like Dylan Dirk stuff and like how he's got like the narrative over all of his stuff. Like, that's sick. Like imagine having like little narratives like that, and it can be totally unrelated, but stuff like that kind of intertwines. People are going like, this is different.
It elevates everything so much. It just brings it to the next level. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. And it just makes it easier for you on the day. You already know the shots you need to get. You're like, this one's on a gimbal. This one's going to be the drone flying through. This is going to be on the Super 8. And you kind of know all the shots you're going to get. Everyone's across that and you're kind of moving through those scenes. And it just makes everything, then you're not, I feel like on those style shoots, you're shooting so much because you're worried about what everyone else wants.
Yeah.
Whereas like, no, this is our plan. This is what we're doing. This is what we're shooting.
Setting expectations for the day so everyone's on board.
Yep.
Yeah. What's next for and I'm going to butcher this, Togganzinis?
It's, man, I hated brands that did the associate thing really bad. Like when they're just like, cool, we're taking on 100 weddings, really feel like they're just taking away from the community and taking away from other people's work. Lately in the last month, I've passed off like 20 jobs to other friends that are easily on my level as far as photo and video goes, and none of them have booked anything. Whereas then I go back to those people, I'm like, look, I can't shoot it, but I've got these other people that will shoot it. They work with me all the time, and I've booked 3 of those 20. So I think that's like, I hate that model, but also like for me, I'm like, well, I'm spending all this money on advertising. I'm spending money on the business. Why wouldn't I grow it out this way? So I think that's going to be, it won't be huge. Like it might be hopefully doing another 30 to 40 weddings with kind of associate lead photo and video teams. But I'm kind of in a good spot. Like I know you don't want to get complacent, but this year is going to be a really good year as it is already. And so I think just hiring more staff and being able to serve more people is kind of the goal for me for this whole year. And also just becoming an adult with money. I feel like the more I earn, the more I spend. I've still got $0. So yeah, like this is the first 3 months is like, it's literally just all like profits. I'm working with like a business/life coach as well. And that's like for the first 3 months is like, that's all we're doing. just like working out budgets. So it's not like you guys would know, you're like, oh, I'm super rich and I'm poor and I'm rich and I'm poor. You know, it's like
that's my life. I was at the pub yesterday and I was like living this up, gonna remember this for in June when I'm poor.
Like I'm so over that. I'm just like, this is a year of becoming an adult. Like plan holidays, plan big purchases. Don't just like, oh yeah, we just got paid for all of March's weddings. Let's go buy, let's go to Europe for a month. Yeah, let's plan shit.
Yeah,
I love that. It's because you really especially in this industry, you really need to be careful. You see a big stack of cash come through, and you're just like, oh my god! Like
I really need an FX6. I do. I need one. That's gonna level everything up.
All of a sudden, you're in DigiDirect, just looking at all these things, going, "Oh, I could do that."
Didn't know I needed that, but I do need that.
I really like the way that they have a tiny bit more focus. Oh, I need this lens.
I reckon the best part about what you just said there is you mentioned earlier you've been 13 years in weddings. You mentioned at the start that you're 38. And this is another thing I always speak to people about: is there a shelf life for vendors? And this is kind of kicking that out of conversation, but hearing all of that for someone like myself who's 27, so you got 11 years on me, and going like, okay, there's 11 years between us, and there's things that you're doing that I'm not, there's things that I'm doing that you're not, and that the drive and the passion and all that is still there, and it's like you're still trying to level up and still trying to get to that next thing after so long, and it kind of puts things into perspective of, everyone says like things happen when they happen and things happen for a reason and all those things, but especially considering kind of where I'm at, it's good to hear that even after so long in the industry and so long doing this, that there's still things that you're striving for. And it's kind of like reassuring to go like, okay, like I don't have to do X, Y, and Z by the end of next month. Like
exactly.
It might not be for another 3 years until whatever I'm sort of imagining happens, but just keep putting things in place, like just keep working towards it. Like even the other thing, just like being better with money. And then you're like being an adult with money, and you're more of an adult than Michael and I, if you're going purely off years, but yet you're still learning. So I think if anyone is starting out and they're listening and they're like not sure, or they think that it's never going to happen, like it probably will happen. But it might not be now. It might be 10 years from now. It might be 10 months from now. You just keep pushing towards it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was your age, and same thing. I was looking at like the guys that were 40. I'm like, you guys are done. It's like, because like I was like, there's no way I'm doing weddings when I'm 40. And now I'm like, oh, of course I will be. And it's like I shot 60 last year, and that was a big thing. I shot 60, but only 20 were for me. And so I'm like, well, I can't do that, next year. Yeah. So I'm like not shooting for anyone else at all this year. It's only going to be just my own work. And also knowing like, it's not right now, but also your whole business can shift, as Michael knows, like in a year, in 2 months, in 6 months, like it can shift from like, there's just this one catalyst and you're like, oh, and you'll think to yourself, like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? But you weren't ready to do that thing now. It's just now you are. And I think the more conversation you guys have with everyone, the more you're just like these little bits and pieces, and you're like, okay, just implementing these, and all of a sudden it just takes off.
Yeah. And if you could go back like because how long has it been? 13 years?
Yeah.
If you could go back to when you first started that first day, what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to your future self?
I think like I was so in learning photography and technical skills. Like that's where it all was. Like, how do I learn like my camera and everything like that? That I was so just staring and blinded by that I kind of didn't look outside and look at the rest of the industry. I think the industry has changed a lot since that time, but I had some really good people that I was working with back then, and just didn't appreciate it. Didn't even know actually that like I got all these opportunities passed to me, and I was just like, well, I just need to learn how to shoot better. And then all of a sudden, if I'm shooting better, then I'll be in all the magazines and everything like that. But also knowing that, like, I still love Hello May and all the, Together Journal and everything like that. But also like that isn't the be all end all. Like you don't have to be, I was looking back then, it was like Jonas Peterson, Dan O'Day, Todd Hunter. Like I was looking to all these guys, all these like rock star photographers. And I'm like, that was the goal. But then also like knowing maybe if I was doing that, I wouldn't be happy. Like, I don't like nighttime. So why do I want to be in New York shooting weddings till 12 at, midnight? That's not going to make me happy. So it's like
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Because we went down a similar thing, and I can relate to I just need to get a little bit better, and then these things will happen.
Yeah.
I was so focused on that. But I was talking to Riley the other day, and I'd always be like, I wanted to be destination wedding photographer. I want that. That's what I want in my life. Anyway, this year comes along, got a heap of destination weddings, and I started to plan them for this year. And I went to Riley last week. I was like, I don't know if I want this. Like, why do I want to be away from my friends and family all year? Like, cool, I'm going to be traveling, but I'm going to be just constantly away from everyone. Like, this doesn't sound fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's crazy how what you think at the very start and all these things, like, they'll glamorize, but everyone just, you find your way and you just kind of just want to chill and cruise.
Yeah, yeah. And even realizing, cool, epic, Bali wedding, but also I can't work, 2 days either side of that. And like, would I have booked another wedding if I was just at home? Would I have booked another wedding there as well? Like, it's also
100%.
those kind of things. And like, well, maybe we'll just go to the holiday, maybe we just book 3 more weddings and we go to Bali for a holiday for 2 weeks as a fam, rather than trying to like book that wedding there and like having the stress of like, shit, they're going to catch me at the airport and all this kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, it's literally that. And it's really cool to like, I don't know, it's just, you can see yourself growing as you go. Because if you're looking back and you haven't made any mistakes or haven't changed the way you looked at things, I think you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
It's good. We're in an industry where obviously creativity is key. So always paramount. Like, that's why we want to do photos and videos and do all this stuff. And that the great part is you can guide your business down any route that you like at any time. So like Michael's like, I want to do destinations, and now obviously he's unsure, but I probably reckon that's a little bit of fear unknown as well, because it's something so new. But then you might go and shoot them and you'd be like, all right, I like doing this, but maybe I don't want to go to Europe. Maybe I just want to go to like New Zealand, and I don't want to do it 10 times a year. I want to do it 2 times a year.
Yep.
So you can kind of like, and then you might get at one point, you might be like, life's just in the perfect spot. And you're like, no, fuck it. Like, we're just going to hammer it out. And we just want to go and do a heap of them, say I've done it, and then go back to just shooting local weddings. Like, you can take it up and down at any point. And it's I reckon that's the best part business. About it. Exactly right.
You can do whatever you want. This is my business, bitch. But I need to be stressed. I'm not going to do anything today. I'm going to go to the pub. Who cares?
And I guess even taking it back to a business point though, like, cool, like, you can shoot 3 weddings in Europe. You're going to book more weddings in Australia because you're the Europe photographer. And so it's like also like even thinking about like, okay, this like, man, I'm not even going to make any money. I'm going to Italy. I'm shooting this wedding. I'm not even going to make any money from doing it with travel and all this kind of stuff. But also you're probably going to, elevate your business and book more weddings back here because you did that. So it's like taking all that kind of stuff into account as well.
It's crazy. It is a stressful industry to be in, but it is also such a giving industry as well. And I think that like one of the things you mentioned is like community over competition. And I think when you make that switch and you do what you've done and you network and you figure out your values and you stop looking at everybody else as like, I need to undercut this person to get a job. I need to be better than this person to get a job. If they say you attract more, what was it? It was the honey and flies. I don't fucking know. It was in my head and then it went away. Attract more people. I don't know. Anyway,
good one, mate.
We'll cut that out.
Keep it going.
When you you put out a good vibe and you don't care if somebody else, like if you give them some advice or you bring them onto your show and that's going to elevate them up, you're like, great, because that's only going to take you with them.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just being a good person. It's like, there's been a lot of people that I've helped out, and I've had like a couple other friends like, why are you helping them for? Like, they're kooks. And you're like, dude, just fucking help them. Like, just be like, just don't be a dick. It's like not costing you like, cool, 15 minutes to fill this person in on something. Like, what does that matter? And it's going to make their life better. Just do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, coming up to probably a good time at the moment. I just wanted to leave you with one question.
Yep.
And this is for like people coming up in industry, and some like, what are your 3 bits of advice for someone in the industry right now coming up and wanting to, I don't know, grow?
All right. So if they're starting from the start, I would say I'm assuming they've probably got to have like a full-time job or something bringing in money to start with. I would say start your business, and before you start taking profits, hire someone. Like the amount of stuff that you would learn, like if you can outsource like to a VA or something like that, the amount of stuff that you can learn while trying to teach that person is going to be like life-changing for you. So like that's one of the things I wish I had done earlier. I've tried it a few times and it just kind of now it's eventuating. But yeah, I think hiring a staff member to do all the crap, even like I'll be away, I'll be shooting, and you know how you're shooting, and then all of a sudden you're feeling like you're getting further and further behind because you've got like 2 or 3 weddings in a weekend, and like all this backlog's just in the back of your mind. But then you'll kind of get out in the day and like someone will send you like, here's a ceremony and speeches edit I just did. And you're like, this is sick. Like that kind of completely changes your mindset.
Yeah.
I think that's like a big one. You're just starting out. So realistically, you're going to be, I guess, at the bottom of the pile of vendors and all that kind of stuff. But I would say like never be too big to help out another vendor. Don't, let your ego get in the way. And, there's another florist that's just starting and like, oh, they got 37 followers and they want to do a styled shoot. Do the styled shoot with them. Because also like be a good person, but you also never know where they're going to be. In 5 years' time, that could be you've helped them out. You've done all these amazing photos for them. And then all of a sudden, they're lifting you back up as well. So I think it's like never be too big to help out other vendors, no matter where in their journey they are. Third one, I think it's just got to be networking and get to as many local events or as many in-person events as possible. And don't be afraid to like reach out on Instagram or wherever and like ask questions. Like I don't think there's ever been a time when someone's asked me, like slid into my DMs and asked me a questions where I'm like, fuck off. It's like, like you feel like you almost like someone's asking you get this little like ego, like, oh, someone's asking me advice, It's a good thing for you. So like never feel like ashamed or never feel nervous to actually go out and ask someone some advice, because chances are they're going to love it. It's going to make them feel like an industry expert and they're going to give you as much info as they possibly can.
Yeah, I really love that. And I love the networking one. The amount of people that say network, like your network is your net worth. Like that gets said so much. I still don't do it, but it gets said so much. So I really, really love that. And honestly, like everyone is the same. Like just treat everyone as equals and give as much advice is such good advice for anyone. Like you're never too big or too small for anyone is amazing.
Yeah. And like you go to those networking events, everyone feels like a dick. Everyone's feeling the same way. Everyone's like feeling like they're there to network and no one wants to feel that way. But like everyone's feeling the same way. So like just go like, oh, we're just here, we're hanging out and this is what it is.
Yeah. To treat it less of like a show. Like you're not trying to sell to anyone. Just be friends. Like just meet them. Yeah. I really like that.
Exactly.
Well, have you got anything to add, Riley?
No, I'm pretty happy. That was really good. That was really good. It was like a one-on-one coaching session.
13 years. Togga has given us. Did we get Steve or Togga just then? What was that?
Togga, if you got the high quality stuff, it's Togga.
Yeah, baby. We got Togga today.
The first episode with a guest wasn't a failure. So we're flying.
Thank you so much for being our first guest. Hopefully we'll have you back again.
Seriously, that was epic. Like, just like to have the chat. That was awesome, guys. And anytime you want me back on, I'd love to come back on. I'll have to have you boys on the potty as well.
Oh, I would love that. Hey, I'm in the sunny coast. You're in you're just down in Gold Coast. Oh, Byron.
Yep. So I'll have to come up that way up to, they've been, Old Dairy's been hitting me up to come back up there and film again. So I'll let you know when I'm back up that way.
Awesome. This is awesome. Well, thanks so much again, mate, for jumping on. We really appreciate it. Hopefully someone's listened and they've taken something from this. And if they haven't, well, maybe go back and listen to it again because there's plenty of gold in there. But that was awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much, boys. And same thing, if there's any way I can help, just yell out.
And where can, real quick before we leave, where can everyone find you?
Let's do the Wed Co Podcast is kind of the one I'll be pushing a lot this year. Obviously for chatting to a lot of different vendors. The Tognazinis, there's not going to be too many brides and grooms listening here. It's going to be all the vendors. But same thing, if anyone needs any info, jump onto either of those Instagrams, shoot me through some messages and I'll get back to you. That's about it.
Love it.
Mad.
Love it.
So
Thanks
thank you,
so much,
lads.
boys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
Stop.